Have you ever looked at a massive tree and just wondered? I mean, how does it get so big? It doesn't eat anything, right? Yet it grows from this tiny little seed into a giant. Well, today we're putting on our detective hats to uncover the plant's secret recipe for making its own food. This is the big question, isn't it? It feels a little bit like magic. A plant takes the most basic things imaginable, sunlight, the air around us, and water from the ground, and literally builds itself. So how on earth does it do that? Well, the answer is a process with a pretty cool name. That secret is called photosynthesis. And if you break down the word, it's actually pretty simple. Photo comes from the Greek for light, and synthesis means making. So it literally means making with light. It's this incredible chemical process that pretty much powers all life on Earth. So let's grab our magnifying glasses and get this investigation started. Okay, so every good investigation has to start by finding evidence of the final product, right? Before we can figure out how the food is made, we first have to prove that a plant is actually making it and storing it somewhere. And our scene of the crime? A simple green leaf.
So, how do we find this hidden food? We can't just, take a bite out of the leaf and see if it's sweet. No, we need a chemical test. We need a way to make the invisible visible. Something that will react with the food and give us a crystal clear signal that says, aha, here it is.
So the food plants make is actually a simple sugar called glucose. But for long-term storage, they link all these glucose molecules together to form something more stable, a complex carbohydrate called starch. And lucky for us as detectives, there is a very famous, tried and true test for starch. It's called the iodine test. And the most crucial step here is actually the first one. We have to boil the leaf in a special spirit to get rid of all that green coloring. That's the chlorophyll. Why? Because that green is so intense it would totally mask our results. Once the leaf is pale and whitish, we're ready for the big moment. We add our key chemical, iodine. And bam! Look at that! The pale, unassuming leaf, as soon as it's touched by iodine, turns this deep, dark blue-black color. That color change is the definitive signal for starch. We've got our evidence. Case closed on that front. The leaf is absolutely packed with food. Awesome. We've confirmed the product. So now we get to do the really cool part. We work backward, like true detectives, and figure out the exact ingredients a plant needs for this recipe. And we're going to use a series of really clever experiments to isolate each one. So our first suspect has to be the most obvious one, sunlight. I mean, the name of photosynthesis kind of gives it away. But science is all about proof, not assumptions. So how could we possibly design an experiment to prove that without light, a plant simply cannot make this starch? We use something called the black paper experiment, and it's pretty ingenious. First, you take a potted plant and stick it in a dark closet for a couple of days. This forces it to use up all its stored up starch, giving us a clean slate. Then you clip a little strip of black paper over just one part of a single leaf, blocking out all light from that little patch, and put the whole plant back in the sun. After a few hours in the sun, you take that leaf and do the iodine test on it, and the result is just undeniable. The parts that saw the sun turned that deep blue-black, but the part that was covered by the paper, it stays pale. This is our smoking gun. The verdict is in. No light, no starch. Period. Sunlight is absolutely essential. Okay, one ingredient down, but we know plants don't just use light. They also have to be taking in something from the air. The prime suspect is carbon dioxide, or CO2. The question is, how in the world do you test for the role of a single, invisible gas? You do it with another brilliant setup. This one's called Moll's half-leaf experiment. You take one leaf on a living plant and carefully slide half of it into a bottle. Now, inside that bottle is a chemical called potassium hydroxide, or KOH, and this chemical has one very specific job. It's a CO2 sponge. It sucks all the carbon dioxide right out of the air. So the air inside the bottle has no CO2, while the air outside has plenty. So you leave this setup in the sun, then you test the entire leaf for starch. And the result is so clear. The half of the leaf that was outside the bottle with access to normal air turns blue-black. The half that was inside the bottle, starved of CO2, it stays completely pale. The verdict is in. Carbon dioxide is another essential ingredient. So we figured out the key ingredients that go in. But back in the 1700s, while scientists were first puzzling this out, they stumbled on something else, something that comes out of the plant. It was a byproduct, a total surprise, and it would change our understanding of the entire planet.
This huge discovery actually came from a really simple experiment. If you take an aquatic plant, something like hydrilla, and you put it underwater, under a funnel, and shine a light on it, you start to see something incredible. A steady stream of tiny little bubbles rising up from the plant. But what are they? What is this gas?
Well, to find out, we can use another classic test from the chemistry playbook, the glowing splint test. You just collect all those bubbles in an upside-down test tube. Then you take a little piece of wood, light it on fire, and then blow it out so it's just glowing red. Then you take that glowing splint and plunge it into the test tube of gas.
And it bursts back into flame. It relights just like that. And there is only one gas that can do that: pure oxygen. This was an absolutely monumental discovery. Plants aren't just making food for themselves. They are actively pumping out the very oxygen that we, and almost all other animals on Earth, need to breathe to survive. All right, we've gathered all our clues. We proved the product is starch. We've identified the essential ingredients, sunlight and carbon dioxide. And we found the surprise byproduct, oxygen. I think it's time to put it all together and finally crack this case wide open.
So here is the complete recipe list. What goes in, what chemists call the reactants, are carbon dioxide from the air and water, which the plant pulls up from the soil through its roots. But they need two more things to make the magic happen: sunlight, which is the energy source, and chlorophyll. Remember, that's the green pigment that actually captures the light energy.
And here it is, the plant's secret recipe, written in the language of chemistry. Now, don't let the letters and numbers intimidate you. All this says is that 6 molecules of carbon dioxide plus 6 molecules of water, when powered by sunlight and captured by chlorophyll, produce 1 molecule of glucose, that's the food, and as a bonus, release 6 molecules of pure oxygen. This one beautiful, elegant equation summarizes our entire investigation. When you really stop and think about it, every single leaf on every plant is a tiny, quiet, perfectly efficient solar-powered factory. It takes a waste product from our point of view, carbon dioxide, and uses free energy from the sun to create food and the very air we breathe. It really makes you wonder, if plants perfected this technology millions of years ago, what else could we learn from their design to help power our own world? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining me.